The human and the broken room. The space station was loud. Too loud for Kayreen. She had come from a quiet world, a place where words were soft and footsteps were softer. But here, machines hissed, pipes clicked, and voices bounced off metal walls, like wild echoes. And the worst part? Her new roommate was a human. Zane was everything her people were not. He was messy, noisy, and always doing something with his hands. Even when sitting, he tapped on a screen, played with wires, or spun a small tool between his fingers. Kayreen had tried to stay calm. Temporary housing, she reminded herself. One cycle only. But when she moved in, she found his room was more like a half workshop. Tools hung from the walls. Heavy belts, metal gloves, and thick rolls of wire were everywhere. Old machines blinked in the corner like sleeping beasts. And there in the center was something large and strange. A long, thick piece of dark metal with two heavy grips and a glowing coil. It sat on a workbench like it belonged in a museum. Zane saw her staring. "You like it?" he asked, smiling. Kayreen tilted her head. "What is it?" "A plasma torque wrench. Old model. Used to seal heavy engine parts." She looked confused. "Why do you have it here?" "Because it still works." "You use that with your bare hands?" "Of course." She blinked twice. "Your species is smaller than mine, but you carry this? Alone?" Zane grinned. "You should see the toolbox." The first night passed. With few words, Kayreen kept her side neat. Zane took apart a broken drone on the floor. She read her digital scrolls. He hummed a tune she didn't recognize, but her eyes kept going back to that tool. It wasn't just the size, it was the way he treated it. Like it wasn't just metal, but memory. The next day, Kayreen entered their room after her shift and stopped. Zane wasn't there, but the tool was, sitting on the bench, quiet, waiting. She stepped closer. There were markings along the handle. Not machine print, hand-scratched symbols, words in human letters, and below them, a carved image of a wolf. She reached out, but didn't touch. Instead, she looked at the weight. Chart glowing on the wall, tool mass 46.8 kilograms. Her hands dropped back. "How is that possible?" she whispered. "Simple," Zane said, stepping into the room. "Humans are stronger than we look." She turned quickly. "Why decorate a tool?" "Because it's more than just metal," he said. "It's been with me since my first ship. Job fixed 6 engines, broke 2 walls, and once it stopped a door from crushing my leg." "You give it meaning? Don't your people do that?" "Only for sacred things," Zane chuckled. "Well, tools are sacred to me." That night, the station lights dimmed early due to a power glitch. Kayreen sat on her side of the room, watching shadows stretch across the floor. Zane lay on his cot, arms behind his head. "You think I'm strange?" he said suddenly. She didn't answer right away. Then quietly, "Yes, because of the tool, because you treat weight like it's normal, and sound like it's peace." He smiled in the dark. "Earth's gravity teaches us that strength isn't optional, and sound means you're not alone." Kayreen turned toward him. "You talk like your tools. How's that? Simple, solid, heavy. I'll take that as a compliment." When the lights came back, she stood, walked over, and picked up the plasma wrench, just barely. Her arms shook, her back strained. "You really carry this daily?" she asked. "Almost every shift." She set it down carefully, then looked at him differently, not with fear, not with confusion, but curiosity. "You are smaller," she said. "Thanks. But everything you build is big." Zane leaned on one elbow. "Maybe because we're always reaching for something larger than us." She didn't reply. She simply nodded. Then, for the first time since moving in, she smiled. Strength they don't understand. Kayreen watched from a distance. It became a habit. When Zane left their room for repair duty, she would quietly follow. Not too close, never speaking, but always observing. There was something strange about the way he moved. Not graceful, not quick, but focused. Solid. Like a creature who knew his path no matter how many turned to look. On the fourth day, she followed him into section D13, where the station's lower water line was leaking. 3 alien engineers stood near the pipe. They were taller than Zane. Their skin shimmered in colors. Their tools floated beside them in magnetic fields. One of them sighed loudly. "This system is primitive," said the first. "Nothing responds to our standard tools," said the second. "Human tech again," the third muttered. Zane crouched by the pipe, not answering. He pulled open his toolkit. No floating scanners, no voice commands, just metal, wires, and pressure gloves. "You're going to use that?" one engineer asked, pointing. To the heavy wrench Zane always carried, Zane grinned. "Yeah, she still works." "She? The tool. Don't insult her." Karine stood behind the wall, just out of sight, but she could see his hands. They moved like they knew every screw, every sound the pipe made. His fingers were dirty, cut, bruised, but they didn't stop. He pressed the tool to the broken seal and twisted. The station floor vibrated slightly. The leak hissed louder, then slowed, then stopped. The engineer stared. "How did you do that?" Zane stood, wiping sweat from his brow. "Gravity," he said. "Muscle, and a stubborn old wrench." He turned to leave. The others stayed frozen. Karine followed, quiet as shadow. Back in their room, Zane removed his jacket and tossed it aside. Karine entered a moment later. "You stopped the leak," she said. "Yeah, wasn't hard. They couldn't fix it. They were thinking too much." "You didn't think?" "I just listened." "To what?" "The sound of the pipe. It tells you when it's ready." Karine looked confused. "You speak to tools?" "No." Zane smiled. "I just understand them." She sat down across from him. "On my world, strength is measured by silence, patience, stillness. On mine," he said, "it's measured by how much you carry without giving up. You carry pain, who doesn't, but you laugh. Because it's lighter than crying." She stared at his hands. They were not like hers. Smaller, rougher, scarred. "Your hands are loud," she whispered. "They get the job done. Why not replace the tool? Use something easier?" Zane looked at the wrench. "Because when you earn strength with something, it becomes part of you." Karine stood slowly, walked to the bench and touched the tool again. Her hand still shook when she tried to lift it. But this time she didn't ask why it was so heavy. She asked something else. "What is it like to build something with your own pain?" Zane looked at her, quiet for once. "It makes the result matter more." The next morning, something unexpected happened. Karine joined Zane at the repair bay. She wore her clean robes, held her long staff, and stood quietly. "You here to watch again?" he asked. "No," she said. "Then, I want to learn." "Learn what?" "How to feel the sound of a broken thing." That day, she didn't speak much, but she handed him tools. Watched how he pressed his ear to the wall. Watched how he leaned into the pressure, not away from it. At one point, he turned to her and said, "Your people think too clean. And yours? We survive in mess." Later, they walked back in silence. "What did you learn?" Zane asked. "You carry more than tools." "What else?" "Weight, not just in hands, in your past, in your voice." Zane nodded. "It's not about being strong. It's about not stopping." She looked up at him. "And that's why you never let go of that wrench?" "Because letting go would mean letting go of the story it carries." A test of tools and hands alarms rang across the lower sectors. Bright red lights blinked in long hallways. A voice echoed over the comms, flat, robotic, and urgent. "Emergency in Sector B9. Coolant flow collapse. Reactor ventilation failure. Repeat, ventilation failure." Zane dropped the wrench he was cleaning. "They're gonna lock that sector down," he said. Karine looked up from her datapad. "What happens if they do?" "The main coolant pump will freeze. Pipes will crack. And if that happens, the reactor, it overheats." She stood immediately. "Then we move." They reached Sector B9 as the last engineers were pulling out. Burning mist filled the air. Blue coolant gas hissed from vents like steam from an angry beast. A tall officer spotted them. "Human, what are you doing?" "Fixing the damn problem," Zane said. "It's too late. We've already tried 3 patch programs. You tried machines?" "Yes. Then send me in." The officer blinked. "Are you insane?" Zane pulled on his gloves. "Depends on the day." Karine stepped beside him. "You can't go alone," she said. "I have to. Then I'm coming." Zane paused. The gas was toxic. The pressure was dangerous. Even the best tools might fail. But he saw something new in her eyes. Not fear. Not logic. Something harder. Trust. They moved through the pressure doors. Inside was chaos. Liquid coolant dripped from split seams. Metal had cracked along the walls. Pipes groaned, trying to hold. And at the far end, the main valve housing had buckled. "Out of place. Can your fancy floating tools fix that?" Zane asked. Karine scanned it. "No, it must be sealed manually, but the clamps, they're warped." Zane dropped his heavy bag beside the valve, pulled out the one thing that had never failed him. His plasma wrench. It gleamed even in the smoke. "You brought that?" Karine asked. "Of course, she never lets me down." He got to work. His hands gripped the tool with practiced strength. He turned the damaged bolts, braced his foot against the floor, and forced the housing back into place. Each twist sent pain up his arms. Each move pressed against the limits of his body. Karine watched in silence. Then, slowly, knelt beside him. "Show me," she said. Zane didn't stop. "You sure?" "Yes." He handed her the second grip. They held the wrench together. 2 hands, one soft and careful, one scarred and solid, wrapped around the same tool. "Push when I say. Ready. Now." They turned. The metal screamed. Then it snapped back into place. The gas slowed. The vent lights turned from red to green. They collapsed against the wall, breathing heavy, sweating, alive. "You carry this much every day?" Karine asked between breaths. "Only when someone needs it," Zane said. "How do you not break?" "Sometimes I do, I just don't show it." She looked at him, closely, differently. The pressure door opened. The officer entered with a scan drone. "You stopped it," he said. "We did," Zane replied, nodding to Karine. "How?" "With hands." Later, back in their room, Zane cleaned. The wrench, Karine sat across from him watching. "You've earned something today," she said. "What's that?" "My respect." Zane smirked. "That all?" She smiled slightly. "For now." He handed her the wrench. She took it in both hands, no shaking this time. "It's still heavy," she whispered. "Good things usually are." When silence turned into questions, the room was quiet now. Not awkward, but thoughtful. Zane sat on the edge of his bunk, arms crossed, his shirt still stained with coolant. Karine sat across from him, hands resting in her lap, her eyes on the heavy tool between them. The wrench that had once confused her now meant something else. "Your body was shaking," she said softly. Zane raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, well, it's not easy holding back a pressurized valve with a 70-pound tool and a cracked glove, but you didn't stop." "Would you have?" She thought for a moment. "I don't know. Before today, maybe I would have. And now? Now I understand why you didn't." She looked down at her hands, long fingers, graceful, unscarred. "We were always taught to avoid damage. Our tools are light, our tasks are calculated. We don't struggle, we solve." "Sounds peaceful," Zane said. "It is. But maybe too peaceful." "How so?" She looked up. "You move like a storm, Zane. Loud, messy, unpredictable. But when something breaks, you run toward it. Because that's when I'm needed most." Karine studied him closely. "Is that a human thing?" "Maybe. Or maybe it's just a me thing. Do all your tools carry stories?" The good ones do. And your scars? He looked at the cuts on his knuckles, the line along his forearm, the faint burn near his collarbone. Yeah, those too. She was quiet for a long time, then finally asked the question that had been building inside her since they met. Why? Do you not hide your pain? Zane thought carefully before answering. Because pain teaches, and if I hide it, I forget what it taught me. But pain makes others uncomfortable. Yeah. But hiding it makes me disappear. She didn't reply. She just looked at her reflection in the tool's metal surface. That night, she didn't sit on her side of the room. She pulled her chair close to the workbench, sat beside him, and handed him each part as he rebuilt a damaged repair drone. He showed her how to tighten clamps without machines, how to listen to friction, how to feel when something was fixed. Even before testing it. At one point, she closed her eyes, placed her hand on the side of the frame, and said, "I can hear it." Zane smiled. Good. That's the beginning. When the last screw clicked into place, she sat back and whispered, "We don't build like this." Like what? With weight, with memory, with meaning. Zane turned to her. You want to learn? She nodded. Then tomorrow, we build something together, not because we have to, but because we want to. She looked at his hands again, still rough, still scarred. But now she didn't see damage. She saw something else, something her people had forgotten, something stronger than silence. The room they built together, Section C7, was the forgotten space. Once, it had been the station's common room, a place where crew members from different species could relax, talk, and rest. Now it was dark, full of broken furniture, cracked screens, and old food dispensers no one dared to fix. Everyone walked past it. Everyone except Zane. And now, Kyrene. You want to fix this? She asked, standing in the doorway. Zane grinned. Why not? It deserves better. This will take days. Then we start now. They worked side by side. Zane lifted and dragged. Kyrene sorted and stacked. He used heavy tools, making sparks and noise. She used her quiet touch, adjusting small systems and mapping power flow. Their styles were opposite, but somehow they fit. When the lights came on for the first time in 2 cycles, Kyrene smiled, not politely, not carefully, a real smile. I thought this room was dead, she said. You thought wrong, Zane replied. And you always think you're right? Not always. Just when you're holding that wrench? Especially then. They repaired the table next. Its legs were uneven. Zane hammered. Wood Kyrene balanced the supports with a soft, stabilizing gel. You use force, she said. You use balance. We build in different ways. And yet, Zane said, stepping back, look what we made. The table stood strong, silent, ready. Later, they sat on the floor, eating from 2 small ration packs. Zane leaned against the wall, tired. Kyrene watched him chew with his mouth half open. You're impossible, she muttered. I get that a lot. And somehow, helpful. He raised an eyebrow. Careful. That sounded like a compliment. It wasn't. Sure it wasn't. She rolled her eyes, but she was smiling again. They installed the screen next. When it flickered on, an old, human music file started playing, a soft guitar tune from a place called Texas. Kyrene tilted her head. Is that music? Yeah, Zane said. Earth sound. Why does it hurt? And calm, at the same time. That's what music is supposed to do. As the night grew quiet, they stayed in the room they built. No one else came. No one else needed to. Because in that silence, something had changed. The tool between them wasn't just a machine now, it was a bridge. Between 2 kinds of strength, and maybe 2 kinds of hearts. The night she held it, the station was calm that evening. No alarms, no broken vents, no shouting across comms. Zane sat at the workbench, tightening the grip on his plasma wrench. The same one Kyrene had stared at the day they met. It still carried the same weight. Still had the same scratches, but now it felt different because she had started asking about it. Not what it was, but why he never put it down. Kareen stood behind him in silence for a long time. Then she spoke. "May I hold?"
It?
Zane didn't look surprised. He turned, placed the tool gently on the table, and stepped back. "It's all yours." She reached out. Not fast, not like a challenge, but like someone touching memory. Her hands wrapped around the metal. Her arms shook, again, but she didn't stop. She sat down slowly, placing the tool across her knees. She traced the old engravings. "This is your name?" she asked, pointing to the letters scratched into the side. "Yeah. And this, a wolf?" "Our old crew symbol." "Why scratch it into a tool?" Zane shrugged. "Because that tool saved our lives more than once. I wanted it to remember who it did it for." She was quiet again, then said something he didn't expect. "It is not just a tool." Zane leaned forward. "What do you mean?" "It is weight, memory, pain, victory. It carries more than metal." Zane blinked. "You really get it now, don't you?" "I think so. And what does it say to you?" Kareen looked down at it. "It says, I am real." She placed the tool on the bench gently, as if it were alive, then looked at Zane. "You said pain teaches," she whispered. "I never understood that until I touched your story." Zane smiled, not wide, just enough. "And what did it teach that even heavy things can carry hope?" They didn't speak much after that. They just sat, in the room they built, between silence and meaning, between weight and warmth. And for the first time, Kareen didn't feel like a visitor. She felt like she belonged. Not just a roommate anymore. Repair Challenge was the biggest event of the season. Engineers, builders, and tech crews from every section of the station signed up. The rules were simple. Fix a broken life support module using only basic tools. No bots, no tech aids, no shortcuts. Zane signed up with no hesitation, but this time, he wasn't alone. Kareen stood beside him at the check-in station. "Are you sure?" he asked. "You taught me how to feel machines," she said. "Now let me prove I listened." They were the strangest team in the competition. Human known for breaking rules, and a quiet alien who once refused to touch anything not clean and silent. The crowd stared as they entered the arena floor. Some whispered, others laughed. But one old mechanic leaned forward and said, "Watch them." Challenge began. Other teams rushed in with scanners and speed. Zane and Kareen moved slower, calm, steady, focused. He opened the damaged panel. She scanned the heat lines with her hands. "Here," she whispered. "This wire is trying to tell us something." Zane nodded. "Then let's listen." They worked like music. Zane hammered. Kareen tuned. He carried weight. She carried balance. He passed the wrench. She held it with both hands and used it for the first time on her own. It shook her arms. But she didn't stop. Not once. They finished 10 minutes early, and when the judges tested the module, it lit up perfectly. No errors, no skips. Just solid working life support, built by 2 hands, 2 minds, and 1 story shared between them. After the win, someone asked Kareen, "How did you learn to fix things like that?" She looked at Zane, then said, "He didn't teach me how to fix. He taught me how to feel, how to carry, how to trust my own strength." "And the tool?" the reporter asked, pointing to the old plasma wrench now resting in a display case. "It's just metal," she said, then smiled softly. "But inside it is everything we built." Back in their room, Zane leaned against the door, arms crossed. "So, still think humans are too loud?" Kareen stood near the workbench, her hand resting on the tool. "Yes, but now I understand the music." Zane laughed. "And what are we now? Still just roommates?" She walked past him, paused at the door, then turned. "Not just that," she said. "Then what?" She looked at him and replied simply, "We are builders of more than rooms."